his need to be able to give back to the community, to the field, to medicine, to make people's lives healthier and happier are overriding considerations in terms of anything that he does.
I would say he was an example of centralized authority, decentralized decision-making. He enabled the individuals around him to think for themselves and to make the decision. He was there if they needed him for counsel, and they always knew he had their backs.
Every day working for Mike was like a masterclass. It was a masterclass in leadership. It was a masterclass on how to interact with people.
Patients are a huge priority for Mike, but it's not just the patient. He thinks about the employees. He thinks about people in general. I think relationships are critically important in the way he thinks about innovation. It's about how people innovate, but ultimately it's about people, how human people are, how people are trying to help each other, how they're trying to create things. That literally is who Mike is.
He's looking for durable, sustainable, meaningful, impactful change in the way technology is presented to patients that affect long-term patient outcomes. That kind of innovation is much more difficult.
I grew up in Gary, Indiana, and I was fortunate to grow up one of 3 boys in a very loving family. My older brother had Down syndrome, but it had a pretty profound impact on our entire family growing up. He was a source of a lot of love, but also needed a lot of care. And I learned a lot from my parents, particularly my mom, who sacrificed a career to really give her life to George so that he and others like him could have a better life. So in high school, I showed interest in math and science, which got some folks to encourage me to think about engineering school. I applied and got a degree in chemical engineering. And I went to work for Union Carbide. I learned a lot. I was a supervisor of people that were older than me, and I learned a lot about just the simple skills of you don't tell people what to do, you ask them if they would like to join you in a journey and things like that.
Mike has an understated leadership style in that he never made it about him, but you also were never confused about who was in charge. He did empower you and supported you, but he also reserved the right to make the decision.
I became a student of innovation. I really tried to understand, why does it happen? Why doesn't it happen? Why do small companies tend to do it better than large companies? Innovation is not straight up. You have a lot of failure. And if you have a culture that doesn't acknowledge failure as part of the process and the opportunity to adjust and pick yourself up, not a very good culture to breed innovation.
That degree of creativity, innovation, risk, at a time when you were running a surgical valve company was unprecedented. And he did it in a very seamless, very embracing, very inclusive, and very creative way to really transform a company from a surgical company to a transcatheter, less invasive company, because he believed that it was in the best interest of patients.
It was all about unmet clinical needs. He never thought about doing a Me Too product. He never thought about how do we get into a space that's crowded, even if it's a big opportunity. He always thought, what's an unmet need, and how can we do something unique for patients that allows us to be leaders and allows us to forge new ground.
Over time, when you really stopped and thought about what could glue a company together and become clear and elevating goal, we landed on the patient as being the highest priority. And it's become my highest priority and the guiding light for our company culture along the way. I'm one of those people that likes to always look ahead and say, what's next? And so I don't spend a lot of time looking backwards, and instead I look forward.
It was very focused on the people you could help, the impact you could have, and how to disrupt. That was the biggest thing that Mike's about, is not the status quo, but how do you change medicine?
What Mike is doing in retirement is an extension of what he did in life. He's a problem solver, he's an innovator, he's a leader, and now he's focusing on congenital heart defects and how he can make a difference of changing the management of this disease, just like he did aortic stenosis.
We also have identified 2 populations that I think are below the radar screen and that really need some help. One is delivering health care for a Down syndrome individual. And so we're dedicated to trying to improve health care for that group of people. And then the other area that I'm very passionate about, that I learned a lot through my experiences at Edwards, is the group of people and children that are born with heart defects. So taking on this challenge is one that we've decided is a priority for us.
And there's a huge need in the congenital space. So the idea that Mike's willing to personally get behind this, it's not just always about Mike, it's about the group that Mike brings with him. He brings just incredible, brilliant people, and he brings a focus to everything he does.
One of the most fulfilling parts of my career is to see the management of a particular disease change during the course of my career completely. And Mike was largely responsible for that happening.
Your iconic approach to being a leader, a philanthropist, a humanist, a creative innovator has meant all the difference to the success of this space.